Hello, Renovate moms and dads. This is Fitz. I am the senior high pastor at Croix Church. If you're watching this, you probably already know that. But in case you just ran across this, that's who I am. And this is what we call the Renovate Roundup, which is basically an opportunity for me as the senior high pastor to communicate with you, the parents of our students, to kind of give you an inside glimpse, kind of pull back the curtain, if you will, to what we're talking about at Renovate. So you're informed about the things that we're teaching, the things that we're talking about. Also to give you maybe a few discussion questions for you to have some discussion around the things that we're talking about, to bring the stuff that we're talking about here in the porch. I'm out of my office today, and in the porch, the things that we're talking about here at the porch, and bring those home into your living room, into your living space, and continue that discussion. And then finally, just an opportunity for me to communicate with you about the things that we are talking about, the things that we're announcing, any upcoming events, any upcoming information that you need to know about. To kick off this week's Renovate Roundup, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine. This is Jesus. I mean, clearly he's not the real Jesus, but this is my friend Jesus. He's my bobble Jesus. 9 years ago when I proposed to my wife, almost 10 years ago when I proposed to my wife, I did it in a toy store in a photo booth so I could have photographic evidence of the sheer joy on her face when I finally proposed to her. And in response, she got me a bobble Jesus. So I figure I win because she said yes, and I got a bobble Jesus. But last night we used this as sort of a prop to talk about the ways that we view God. And we oftentimes view God through different lenses and try and put God in various boxes. And when we do that, we view the whole world, and it colors our whole world by that particular definition. For example, many of us, we talked about this, many of us view God as my buddy. And when we do that, when we take God and we put him in this box called my buddy, that affects everything about us. That affects how we view God, how we view us, and how we act and react. It affects how we view other people. And so basically we put God in this box, and God really doesn't care about what we do. He's just our buddy. He just wants to hang out with us. However, when we take God out of this box and instead we put him in this box where he is the killjoy rule enforcer, well, that's gonna have a very different picture of God and the world and ourselves and our actions and our reactions than if we put God in the my buddy box. God is very concerned in this box about how we act and react. And so there are several other boxes that we talked about that we tend to put God in, and how important it is to have an accurate biblical view of who God really is, to really get into the scriptures and say, this is who God says he is. And not just one verse, but throughout the whole of scripture. And we did look at a couple of verses. John chapter 1, verses 1 through 4 is one passage we looked at. And Psalm 100, verse 3 is another passage we looked at. So those are a couple verses you can maybe look at with your son or daughter and have discussion around. Maybe a couple of other questions you might be able to ask them. You could say something like, I know you talked about different boxes that we tend to put God in. What are some of those boxes that come to your mind, and is there one or a couple of those that you tend to put God in? Do you view God as your buddy, or a killjoy rule enforcer, or a cosmic vending machine, or any one of the other ones that they have in the student books that we handed out? And maybe you could ask them that and have some discussion around that. Another question you could talk about is we talked about the point that the fact that God is immanent. It's a theological term which basically means to remain within. And we talked about the idea that God didn't just create us and walk away, but instead he created us and continues to be involved about our lives and continues to care about what happens to us, much like a shepherd does with his sheep. And so maybe you could ask some questions around that. Hey, I know that you guys talked about God is immanent, that he's always there, always involved. And maybe you could ask them, is that a comfortable feeling for you? Does that make you feel really good? Or does that make you uncomfortable knowing that he is right there at all times? And so maybe that'll spark some discussion around this idea that God exists and that God is in fact imminent and how important it is to have an accurate biblical view of who God is. As far as the things that we are announcing that are upcoming in Renovate, different events and whatnot, we only announced 2, but I want to mention to you a third as well. We mentioned that mission trip signups are ongoing, and those are going on for only a couple more weeks. February 3rd is the deadline that we've set for that. So you'll want to get your son or daughter's mission trip registration information turned in time, so those are not late. You can get a registration form if you don't have one, either in the display that's right outside the porch, or you can get it by going to this website here and downloading that registration form and turn it in with the appropriate deposit amount. I'll tell you what, in my experience in youth ministry, almost nothing has as much spiritual formation value as mission trips do, not to mention the fact that we are getting to be used by Jesus to be the hands and feet in a hurting world. So it's a win-win both ways. We are helping people, and at the same time we are growing as individuals. Also on February 3rd is our Super Bowl party, which is just a casual hangout, social time. It's going to be here in the porch. We're going to show it on the big screen, which is right behind me, have food and games. We're asking girls to bring some sort of dessert, and we're asking guys to bring some sort of side dish, which for teenage guys means chips, probably. Also want to let you know about February 9th is our next SOS, which is Saturday of Service. We're going to meet here in the porch at 8:30 in the morning, and from here, depending on who's here, we're going to disperse into the community and just make a difference here in the Cape Girardeau and surrounding areas by doing various service projects in the area. And so we're looking at the possibility of going to the SEMO Food Bank. We might be doing that, might be doing some stuff with Love Inc. or over at Hope Children's Home. We've got a number of different things we're looking at. So get that on your calendar. Because again, it's a great way for us to positively impact the community. Well, thanks again for checking out the Renovate Roundup. If this is your first time, thanks for checking it out, and check back in every week. Every week we're going to be doing this, letting you know what's going on at Renovate. So thanks. We appreciate you checking it out. Have a great week, loving on your son or daughter.